Welcome to Foxcast. This is episode 4. In this episode we're going to start introducing the first of our coaching talks. This week we're going to be talking about base training. So Mark, where did base training come from?
Well Chris, at this time of year all the endurance athletes, the triathletes and the trail runners, they tend to enter their base training period. It's a term which people have used a lot over the years, and everybody's probably heard of the term base training. But its actual origins, it comes back from, really started back in the 1950s, and people like Arthur Lydiard and those great long distance running coaches, and they established this idea of building a solid foundation, this aerobic base, and this is where people started running 100 miles a week to train for marathons. So it's a really old concept that was established for training marathon runners and other athletes around from 1950s onwards.
Okay, so what are the benefits to base training?
Well, at the time, the athletes kind of, if we take one of those like Arthur Lydiard as an example, they were working with athletes who were really good 1500 metre, 800 metre runners, so very quick runners of the middle distances on the track, and what we were trying to do is just give them that added aerobic endurance and build that aerobic foundation just to make them much more rounded runners. And he found that by going out and running slowly and maybe running 100 miles plus every week, he was able to really boost the performances of those runners and churn out some world beaters and smash some world records.
Right, so by the sounds of that, it sounds like you don't necessarily need to train fast to race fast. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean the issue we've got with base training is that when it was developed back in the 1950s. And in the 1950s, basically, there were no recreational runners. People didn't run for fitness, they didn't run for fun. People who ran were athletes. So it's a different kind of people. If you look at the runners we have now and the kind of people that take part in running events, it's very different. So those guys were working with runners who were elite middle distance runners, who were very quick runners. So if you've got someone who can run very quickly, someone who's very talented and can run at high speed for a short period of time, then actually going and adding that mileage and doing the slower running and doing that base work, what it then gives them, you've got a really fast athlete, and what you're doing is then giving them a base aerobic endurance so they're able to sustain it for a longer period of time. So the guys they were working with at that time, that method of training would have been very suitable and would have naturally created those benefits that we saw at that time.
Okay, so what sort of sessions do you need to do on the base training? Is it just a case of going out and just churning out really long miles at a really slow pace, or is there an optimum pace? Is there an optimum time, optimum distance?
Yeah, I mean the big thing is if you're doing base training, you've got to train at a lower intensity. So to develop aerobic base, the two key things are that you've got to be out there for a long period of time, you've got to run at a low intensity, and obviously they work hand in hand, because the slower you run, the more time you can spend out there training. So I think that's a big mistake that people make in the base training phase, is that they don't slow down enough, so they can't go out and run long enough and spend enough time on the feet, or they can't get out on the bike long enough because the intensity is too high, so they have to stop short and head home before they've completed the planned distance. So it's really important in that base training phase to slow it down, otherwise you just can't do that amount of volume. But obviously that really depends on the kind of person, because for some people that's just that's not the correct type of training. It's not suitable for them.
So base training isn't for all.
No, I mean it goes back to this example we were just talking about with when it started in the 50s. All the people that ran at that time were elite runners. So people who were elite middle distance runners, if you added a stronger aerobic foundation and you gave them that added endurance, so they could already run quick. And all you have to do is teach them how to run for further or run for a longer period of time. And so if you take someone who's naturally fast, so if we look at someone like, I don't know, if you look at triathlon, look at the Brownlees, or if you look at Mo Farah, someone who's got natural speed and can run very quick for short periods of time, with Mo Farah being a national record over 1500 metres now. If they can run very quickly, then if you can give them that aerobic foundation which allows them to sustain it for longer periods of time, then you'll get a world champion. The issue is it only fits certain kinds of people. So if you take someone who can't run fast and they don't have that natural speed, then they're not really going to benefit as much from doing that base training, because it's probably just going to be too slow.
Okay, so if you're an endurance athlete and is speed important, or is it just a case of just churning out the base training?
In any race, whether it's a marathon or a half marathon or a 10k, and ultimately you want to complete it in the shortest amount of time. So the fastest winner will be the first person across the line. And I remember from my athletics background, there was always this kind of traditional framework we had in athletics where kids would start running 600 metres, maybe up to 800 metres, and then they become 1500 metre runners. And then they'd go from 1500s to 5,000 metres, and then 5,000 metres to 10,000 metres. And then when people became almost too old or too slow to run the 10,000 metres, they switched to the marathon. So, I can look back at a lot of the great marathoners that Britain have produced, and even people like Haile Gebrselassie and people like that, they step up to the marathon at a certain age, and that's generally when they're not quick enough to compete in the 5,000 or the 10,000 metres. They step up to the marathon, and what that means is they're very, very quick runners, and they're progressing from shorter distances, and gradually as they get older, switching to the longer distances, but predominantly they always were very fast runners. So if you start as a quick runner, you'll always have that natural speed, whereas we don't follow that framework now. If people start running now, if you take someone in the 30s or the 40s, they don't start by racing 800 metres and 1500 metres and then progress to 5k and then 10k and then marathon. We come at it from the opposite end. People start by doing a marathon, so they never had that base speed. They've never been trained how to be quick runners in the first place.
Okay. So what sort of training do I need to? So what sort of training sessions do I need to be doing then?
Well, I think the simplest way to do this is just to assess yourself on your own strengths and weaknesses. So just rate yourself where you are on that scale of, do you have a lot of endurance? Can you run slow for a long period of time? Or are you a quicker runner, so you can get very, very good 5k times, very, very good 10k times, but you're let down by the marathon, and you'd be let down if you competed in an ultra race because you just don't have that endurance. And where do you fall on that spectrum from speed to endurance? So if you're someone that races ultras on a regular basis and you run slower, but you run lots and lots of miles and you don't have a problem with the distance, but in terms of your 5k time that's very poor, then you probably benefit more from spending a winter of trying to concentrate on going quicker. If you're a very, very fast runner, but you have no aerobic base and you struggle with mileage and running a marathon, then you would benefit from going away and doing longer, slower distance. So it really depends on where you fall on that spectrum, and that should be the key thing which dictates your training schedule over the winter period.
Yeah, so where can I go to learn more about base training?
If we're interested in base training and what we just talked about, then just feel free to, if you're viewing this on Facebook in particular, then just comment below the video in the comments boxes if you want to ask any questions, and we'll get back to you from there.
Okay, fantastic. Right, okay, so what's going to be the next topic for the next coaching talk?
Haven't fully decided on the next topic for the next coaching talk, but if anybody watching this, if you've got any questions you'd like us to talk about, whether it's Ironman triathlon, whether it's trail running, road running, ultra marathons, then again, particularly if you're looking on Facebook, then just give us a topic to talk about. If there's something you'd like us to talk about, post it in the comments box below and we'll make that the topic for the next presentation.
That's great, Mark. Thank you very much. Very insightful.
Very much.
Right, moving on to Legends Questions Answered. Before we start with that, good to see you, Mr. Fox. So how's your training been?
Chris, my training's going very, very well at the moment, Chris lad. Yes, I am progressing towards the Lakeland 100. I think I'm on target. I mean, this month, Chris, I have to say, I haven't been doing much running because I've heard that nutrition is very, very important. So I've been focusing just on my nutrition plan.
Okay, like to share?
Well, fat burning is very, very important, and I've read somewhere that these people, Chris lad, they have coconut in their coffee, and it enhances your fat burning metabolism. So I've been just focusing on that for the last month.
Okay, I hear it works for some people.
Yes, I've been having a bounty bar every morning with my cup of Nescafe.
Don't think that's what you mean, Mr. Fox. I don't think that's good for you.
Well, we'll see. Time will tell, Chris lad. Time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. How's the weight?
My weight isn't too bad at all, Chris lad. It's I'm peaking out quite nicely. My weight to power ratio is up at the moment, Chris.
Yes, I think I can see your weight's up at the minute, Mr. Fox. Okay, well, moving on. Starting with a political question. Tom on Twitter has asked what your thoughts are on the law changes about internet history being stored and saved for up to 12 months.
Well, Chris lad, I think that's this law change proves that it's more important these days to be deleting history rather than creating history. And never has that been more true than when my wife gets hold of my laptop.
Okay, moving on. A question from husband and wife who are running the 50 together. Have you got any advice for them?
But running it together.
That's right, yeah, together, yeah. A pair.
As a husband and wife.
Husband and wife.
All I can say, Chris lad, is that anybody who thinks marriage is a 50-50 relationship knows nothing about women and nothing about fractions.
Okay, right. Jason Jones has asked, do bigger runners attract sponsorship deals as there's more advertising space?
Interesting concept there from Jason Jones from that internationally renowned running club, the St. Helens Striders. Yes, Jason Jones, he is rather a big chap, I have to say, Chris. Out of the 5 biggest runners I know, he's 3 of them. As it happens, I have actually recently signed a contract with Jason Jones because of his extra boarding space, and he has agreed to be an advert for my company, Fox Incorporated, and he's doing it totally free of charge.
Wow. How did you manage to persuade him to do that, Mr. Fox?
Piece of cake.
Okay. Right, well, Di Newton has asked, what sort of waterproof coating do you use?
A Montane Rimus.
Simple as that, right? Okay. And finally, Chris Haswell has asked, can he bring his foxhounds next year?
Chris Haswell has asked, can he bring his foxhounds?
That's right, yes.
For the race itself?
For the race itself.
Am I correct here, Chris, that dogs have to be on leads?
That's right, all dogs have to be on leads.
In which case, then yes, he is allowed to bring his foxhounds.
You think you can outrun some foxhounds?
Well, if they're on the lead, I don't have to outrun him. I've seen Chris Haswell's results and I can outrun him.
Okay, right. Well, thanks for your insightful answers, Mr. Fox, as always. Well, good luck with your training and we'll see you on the next episode of the Foxcast.
Thank you very much, Chris lad. I will see you then.
Thank you.